Civilians who led the country, at least to some extent, respected the provisions of the Constitution, especially by valuing to some degree the sanctity of the legislative institution. Fortunately, the military government that usurped power changed all the story. In place of the Constitution, the military ruled by decrees that contained extrajudicial clauses. In addition, through the Supreme Military Council, the military led by the head of state appropriated the lawmaking power vested in the legislature. Consequently, the Supreme Military Council emerged as the highest law and policy-making body in the country. This contortion has remained one of the most painful features and legacies of military rule in Nigeria. Consequently, the legislature in Nigeria is still fighting to take its proper place as an independent arm of government since after the reintroduction of democratic rule in 1999. But you know, then again, this is the tragedy. You know, in 1999, the civilians within the PDP wanted Alex Ekweme to become president. Today, in my meeting, you know, we had a PDP zonal meeting today, and I sat just by Hajia Shiroma. She was telling me this difficult story of how Adamu Shiroma and other statesmen, and their souls rest in peace, were tired of regional parties. So they wanted a truly Nigerian party. So Adamu Shiroma and other statesmen, they were first 18 in number, came together and wrote this horrible letter to Abacha telling him that it was enough. If you remember the G18, then the G34, when they said, no, but it appeared that we were more northerners. No, let's move southwards and get our southern colleagues. So they got people like Alex Ekweme and so on. So they brought them in. I said, yeah, this is truly a national party. Let's move away from the days of Action Congress or NPP, UPN, and the MPC, and so those are regionally based parties. Let's get something integrated so we can leave a legacy for our people. So when they got together and they saw in Dr. Alex Ekweme the person who would lead this country, since he was former vice president to Shehu Shagari. But the military top brass looked at themselves and said, no, these bloody civilians, we won't hand over power to them. Let's take one of our own. That's how they brought Obasanjo to become president. Now, what point am I making? By 1999, when we thought we had recovered from the pressure of the military, we got another military man, another general masquerading as a politician who took over. And you know, it's not the fault of the soldier. If I were a soldier, you know, when I was growing up in secondary school, I wanted to be a soldier. I loved that fatigue. That one that you would go wear and you fold it down here. I loved it. That's the uniform I really liked. When you have spent 30, 35 years in the army, when your senior will look at you and say you are a goat, and you will say, yes, sir, you are an idiot. You say, it's true, sir. That runs completely against the tenets of democracy. As a professor, I know that 70% plus is an A. So why you say loyalty is 100%? I can talk to my constituent and they will say, okay, look, you know I'm loyal to you, you know I'll vote for you, but allow me enjoy this small goodies from this other man now. So you will see somebody who is supposed to be your man. He will be frolicking with other politicians who are contending for the same office with you. He said, allow me. He has reached A. So loyalty in politics not necessarily 100%, it can be 70. And 70 is excellent. But it's not so with the army. Or any of the military institutions. So Obasanjo comes in, he takes over as president. And you tell him that, no, Mr. President, what you're saying is not correct. He said, you. Why were you born when I was head of state? Who are you, by the way? So it is difficult for real soldiers to forget, no matter how they pretend that they are soldiers. They can't understand it. It's a culture. So Obasanjo came and every so often, Obasanjo would want to intervene in what happens in the legislature. If you people remember, when Chuba Okaribo was Senate president, Basanjo went to his house one evening and they had dinner together and they danced to some music and so on. And the very next day he removed it. Almost in the tradition of coup plotting. So the legislature would not be spared under such leaderships. I tell you people a short story of a man, I won't mention his name, he's a retired colonel, he became clan head of a neighboring community, he just passed on, he's still rest in peace. He retired from the army and came to contest elections for House of Assembly in 1979. And they told him, look, in this business of politics, you must convince people and you must give them some monies, make them happy so they will vote for you. So he went around and consulted them. And in the tradition of politics, a man can be telling you, yes, I'm going to support you, and why won't I support you? And if you are a novice, you won't be able to tell. As I stand here, if I come into this place and I'm running elections, no matter how you are laughing and smiling at me, there is something that will make me say, this smile is not likely to be correct. He didn't know. So he gave them monies. I'm sure his retirement benefits he shared. So the next day the election came and they went. He lost colossally. You know what he did? The very next day he brought his pistol and went to their houses one after the other. He will knock. Then he will go, what I said? Bring that for the idea. And went round, they returned his money. So once you have that as your culture, it is difficult to change. Very few soldiers can transform and transmogrify into civilians as they should be when they leave the force. So I'll ask that when you people leave, please don't come to politics. Go elsewhere. The legislature and nation building. We begin this section by attempting to define nation building as a concept. Nation building has been written about and discussed profusely by scholars from various disciplines and walks of life. Yet, like many subjects in the humanities and social sciences, the concept does not admit a universally accepted definition. It's very common in the arts and the social sciences. You see what you see from where you stand. And so you make the point you want to make. If something happens here now and I tell us to give us an account of what happens, you are very likely to give me very different accounts even when you're seated here. That is what we call perspective in history. In Western political science literature, nation building is defined as the process whereby people transfer their commitment and loyalty from smaller tribes, villages, or petty principalities to the larger central political system. That's what Almond and Power said. Isawa Elaigu, a very, very strong political scientist in our country, criticized this conceptualization on the grounds that the process of nation building does not involve the transfer of commitment and loyalties from narrow parochial levels of ethnic groups to larger political units, such as Nigeria. According to him, that you are Igbo, Yoruba, Efik, or a Kikuyu is a matter of identity. You cannot transfer it. You cannot cease being an Igbo or a Hausa or a Kukiyu or an Efik simply because you so declare. For us, it involves a widening rather than transfer of horizons of identity of parochial units to include larger units such as the state. This one for me is grammar. Whether it is transfer or the widening. The point being made is that in nation building, you must think of the larger entity rather than your own. So if you're Hausa or Ojang or Efik, when it comes to Nigeria, you should think about the progress of Nigeria first. That is what people across the world have been able to do. Part of the crisis we have had is our inability to move away from our petty little clans and ethnicities and micro-ethnicities. And I begin to wonder why. Because it is a possibility. And it comes with proper leadership and genuine followership. The kind of leadership we have in Nigeria, unfortunately, is very narrow-minded. We are yet to produce statesmen. That is the reality. And our followership is as bad. That is why I've thought of the book, the tragedy of followership in Nigerian politics. When our people send us to the Senate, they are not looking at the quality of bills that we are passing or the quality of motions that we are moving. They are looking at the amount of money in their pockets. So when you blame the leader, what about the follower? Who is the leader at some level? You wake up in the morning, your entire phone is littered with text messages. These days, they don't just ask for money, they present you the account numbers immediately. So the followership is not helping either. Now, the legislature has contributed to the nation building process in Nigeria in a variety of ways. The National Assembly makes laws to help Nigeria in many ways. It has promoted good governance, which is characterized by participation, rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, equity, inclusiveness, effectiveness, efficiency, and accountability. We are not in want of proper laws. There are laws for good governance in this country. It's the sabotage of those laws that is the biggest problem. There are laws. Legislators also, like I've said, make these laws. There are also oversight functions. Legislators go around oversighting. I must, however, say to all of you, and in spite of the fact that I'm a senator myself, that the business of oversight has been abused, mutually abused, by the legislators themselves and those they go to see. If a legislator comes to oversight you and all he's interested in is how much money he gets back, he's abusing his office. If you are also ambushing the legislator as he's coming and you are telling yourself that, well, as he's coming, if I present this or that, he's not likely to oversight properly, you are also a victim of this general malaise. And then I've spoken about representation. The legislator is supposed to represent his people, speak to their needs and desires, speak to their yearnings and aspirations on the floor. When you do this and give your people confidence and take their problems to the assembly and take your problems to the presidency, to the agencies of government that you should take their problems to, you're doing your job. You're building the nation. You are guaranteeing the safety of people. You're doing the needful. Now, let me just use this opportunity and say one or two things. You see, our country is going through a lot. I am in the Senate. The legislature is supposed to be such a critical place that anybody that is sending anybody to the legislature should send its best. Because it's more or less an intellectual thing. But in the Nigerian legislature, whereas there are a lot of very, very qualitative people there, there are also those who came there without knowing why they came. Because if you have some money in your pocket, even if you can't spell your name, you can buy your way there. Because of the monetized nature of the system. When you come to the legislature, as I've also spoken and said to you people, when you get there, and you are always seen on the floor, you're articulating issues, you're speaking for Nigeria. For instance, I'm Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I only represent Cross River Central. We're supposed to be speaking for our country. As you are showing yourself strong, working for Nigeria, working for your people, they are asking you questions whenever you go there. Say, how much is that grammar now? They want to measure everything that by how much you put in their pockets. Even when you take projects to your constituents, they are very likely to tell you that, yes, we have seen the projects. You have done well now. Yes, we have seen the board. So this country needs complete reorientation. That is the reality. That is where we are. On the legislature and national security. My initial plan was to discuss national security under nation building, based on my belief that the two are sort of Siamese twins, and as such cannot be discussed independent of each other. Indeed, there can be no nation building without national security. Against this initial thought, I have decided to separate the two to comply with the topic that was given to me. I believe that the organizers have good reasons for isolating security from other elements of nation building and development. Security is very critical to the existence and smooth running of any state. Without doubt, the primary essence of the state is the promotion and creation of social, political, and economic conditions that will enhance the welfare and well-being of the citizens. Thus, national security is quite an important but complex component of nation building and development. As a concept, national security has come to mean different things to different people. Originally conceived as protection against military attack, national security is now widely understood to include non-military dimensions, including but not limited to security from terrorism, minimization of crimes, economic security, energy security, health security, environmental security, food security, and cyber security. This is your area, and you understand it even better than I do. Before, when people talk about security, they are talking about the sovereignty of the country. How you can protect our country. Then when things really get bad internally, they say, okay, for instance, drag the soldiers to come if the police is failing in its responsibility. But today is beyond that. People have come to understand that security is a process. People have come to see that, for instance, there can be the weaponization of hunger. No matter what anybody says, a lot of what is going on in this country, whether it is banditry or Boko Haram or kidnappings, at the center of it is lack of education and poverty and bad governance. That's the truth. So security has now become an all-encompassing subject. As earlier demonstrated, the role of the legislature is deep. There is overseeing, there is monitoring, scrutinizing policies by the executive branch of government. All these are part of it. The legislature acknowledges the fact that human security is a cornerstone of development and progress in a free society, and that security is the only guarantee of the well-being of citizens and stability of the state. The legislature is committed to the promotion of the ideals of freedom, equality, and justice in the conduct of the affairs of the nation. To this end, it supports, for instance, a policy of economic diversification and the opening up of avenues for production and employment in agriculture, industry, etc. The legislature partners in the clarification and strengthening of economic rights and entitlements of oil and other resources oil and other resource producing communities. It promotes fair and equitable distribution of these resources. The legislature recommends the setting aside of proportion of revenues from resource windfalls in a trust fund for the people, make laws that guarantee freedom of religion and residence to citizens, ensures the fundamental rights of citizens are not abused anywhere, insist on laws that genuinely consolidate the electoral process, deals with military budgets, etc. Whenever military budgets come to us, I must say it here, we deal with those budgets expeditiously. We are aware of the situation as it is. So we treat military budgets specially. I think 2 days ago or so, we approved another tranche of military budgets. Now, but have we dispatched and undertaken our responsibilities properly in the interest of this nation? I don't think I can fully say yes. I speak, for instance, to the issue of the electoral process. Everyone knows that one of the biggest challenges of this country is the fact that the electoral process is not good enough. There's too much rigging. You go for an election, the results that are announced from Borno give the impression that, look, the population has even increased. But every day we hear of thousands of people being slaughtered, hundreds of people being killed, people running away. But during elections, you will harvest 2 million, 3 million votes from Borno. Where are the votes coming from? So we all know that there is too much rigging in this country. And what does rigging do? What rigging does is that it puts out people that are not eligible ordinarily to the ones representing us. Rigging creates a situation where a man can tell his constituents to go to hell. I don't care about your yearnings and aspirations, because in reality you don't vote me. Any politician who knows that he's in office at the instance of his people will respect them, will conduct himself with humility and wisdom, will carry his people along. But if you know that you don't need them, when the time comes, you can write results from the comfort of your home. Why would you misbehave? And so when the electoral act amendment came, we all spoke to the issue of electronic transmission of voting. But you people saw what happened. People used all kinds of booby traps to attempt to undermine it so that the votes of Nigerians would not count. It is a shame. I am not proud of it. That is why I respect El-Rufai. I may not agree with all his opinions. To show you how much he hated what happened at the National Assembly. He conducted his own local government elections electronically. It was a protest to say to us that what you did was wrong. In this time of the 21st century, a country great like Nigeria would be saying that we are not ready to do electronic transfer of voting. It's such a shame. I hope we correct it. And I want to congratulate INEC for insisting that if you don't want electronic transfer of voting, you would at least be accredited electronically. This country must move forward. People must be sincere. We are greater and better when we are broad-minded as a people, not when we are limited and small and we keep dragging ourselves backwards. Beyond the above, the legislature plays an important role in safeguarding the democratic tradition by overseeing the security and defense sector. It exercises legislative powers and parliamentary oversight by passing laws that define and regulate the armed forces and security services and their powers, and by adopting the corresponding budgetary appropriations. Such oversight may also include the establishing a parliamentary ombudsman or permanent ad hoc committees that may launch investigations into complaints made by the public. The legislature also has the constitutional right and duty to call, and indeed has been calling members of the military before its committees and questioning them, including high-ranking officers whose testimony may be necessary in order for the parliament to carry out oversight. In specific terms, the legislature performs the following functions in the security sector: approves appointments of major military commanders, debates and provides input on security policy and enacts laws, debates, approves budgets, reviews, approves major arms procurement projects, ensures that military personnel swear an oath of allegiance, that is to the Constitution, the rule of law and the state institutions, recommends and adopts measures to strengthen cooperation among the various state security services in order to combat internal crime, works towards the harmonization of laws and procedures with neighboring states in order to promote security cooperation, etc. etc. That is why, for instance, the insightful comment of Oluwole Oke, former chairman of the Committee on Defense on the House of Representatives, worth quoting here. And I quote him: legal authority for parliamentary visits to the premises of the military and security services is derived from the general budgetary and oversight powers contained in sections 80 and 88 of the 1999 Constitution, and the jurisdiction of defense and security committees spelled out in the standing orders. Such visits are conducted with the aim of exchanging opinions with military personnel to ensure judicious application of funds appropriated for the military, and to hold the Minister of Defense and Chief of Defense Staff accountable when there are lapses. Members and the clerk of relevant defense and security committees or an ad hoc committee of investigation are usually part of the delegations. These visits take place whenever the need arises, but at least 3 times in the legislative year. Although no special procedures are involved, the visits are conducted with the prior knowledge of the military authorities. Parliamentary visits have served to enhance civil-military relations and promote understanding and trust between the institutions. That is how it is. Now, I am conscious of my 10 minutes. I'll be rounding up or winding down. Nation building and national security beyond legislation. The point should be made that our nation needs more than legislations to develop and be secure for their citizens and other nationalities that have chosen to live and work here. The success of any nation-building experiment depends not just on laws, but on the ability of individuals and institutions to play their roles according to the Constitution and relevant laws. The inability of the citizens and of the machinery of law enforcement to promote fairness, equity, and justice has serious implications for the nation-building project of nations. The point has been made that a nation is founded not only on laws, but on men. Kanu Agabi, the former Attorney General, had this to say: we do not have a nation of just laws, but a nation of men. Men by themselves, however great and numerous, do not suffice to establish a nation unless they have laws. That is why we have a constitution. Laws, on the other hand, by themselves, do not, however good or well conceived, suffice to establish a nation unless there are men. So the two must coexist. There must be laws and there must be men. The laws of the nation ensure the production of good citizens. Those good citizens, in turn, ensure the maintenance of the laws. It couldn't have been well put. While laws, structures, and processes are useful ingredients in nation building, the quality of institutions determines whether or not nations are able to manage their political and social disputes peacefully. That is what is lacking in Nigeria, and that is what we must create in our country. We must be a nation of good men, a nation of qualified men. The blind cannot lead those with eyes. Merit, wherever we find ourselves, whether in the military or in the civilian class, must be maintained. When you have a proper person with the right qualities leading you, it is different. When you have a dumb head leading you, you are likely to get into the pit. We must create institutions. We must create laws. We must create regulations. We must purge ourselves of small-mindedness. We must stand up to the responsibility of building our country. That is the least we can do. I wonder why, if you are, for all of us who have been traveling abroad, you see Nigerians, I used to get surprised, and I really laugh. When you are traveling, for instance, to the UK or to the US with your fellow citizens, when you are here, you are boarding the aircraft, you see all sorts of rowdiness. People stepping on you, people behaving anyhow. These same people, when you get to the US, they are different persons. I just be looking at them. Are these people still Nigerians? Everybody will behave himself or herself. Everybody will cure. Everybody will be working properly. So if we have the right leaders in this country to do the right things, our people will behave well. We are a nation of great men and women. While the legislature and the executive have different roles in the building of the Nigerian state, they share the responsibility for maintaining a functioning and secure nation. A third branch, the judiciary, and other non-constitutional institutions such as civil society organizations and the media also share this responsibility. This idea of shared responsibility also applies to relations between the political and military leaders. These organs and institutions should not see themselves as adversaries with opposing goals, but as collaborators in the task of nation building, in the task of building a strong, peaceful, progressive, and united Nigerian nation that would become a pride of the black world. People have become so despondent about Nigeria recently. Very few people believe in Nigeria as we speak. That people have gone so far as to craft all kinds of theories to give the impression that we were never meant to be a nation at all. They will tell you that there is something demonic about the name Nigeria. And some of these are very serious Nigerians. They tell you the name Nigeria has something demonic, that Flora Shaw and Lord Lugard were demonic people. They belong to a certain cult. So the name Nigeria is bad. They tell you that we were not meant to be together, that we were so disparate as a people. We have a book that we have already put together. I'm supposed to present it to the. I was supposed to present it on our 60th anniversary, but because of COVID, we shifted it, and we are still shifting it. Maybe early next year, by the grace of God, we'll get it presented. The title is Foundations of Nigeria's Unity. And in that book, I'm trying to demonstrate that there is nothing different between Nigeria and other nations. Other nations did not come from one man and woman. Those nations were not created by the birth of people from one man and woman. Not even ethnicities were so created. Disparate people come together to form nations. When they melt, they come together. Proper leadership and genuine followership melds them into a nationality, into a nation, into a state. You take a Nigerian and transport him to America, he is taken through the process of becoming an American citizen. He then becomes even more proud of his American citizenship than his own origins in Nigeria. You visit a lot of these countries and you see people hoisting their flags on their doorways, on their windows, and so on. Because of the way the nation treats them. Because they are fortunate to have good leaders. And because they are also genuine followers amongst them. That is the kind of thing we need in Nigeria. Nigeria is a blessed country and we can make it great. Conclusion. In this necessarily brief discourse, we have highlighted the role of the legislature in nation building and national security. It is clear from the foregoing discussion that though the legislature faces peculiar challenges occasioned by the nature and character of the legislative institution bequeathed to the country by the British colonialists and by successive regimes in the military era, the Nigerian legislature has remained a veritable instrument of national development. It has continued to make laws and enforce implementation of policies that guarantee the fundamental rights of the citizens and ensure that the dividends of democracy get to the grassroots. Because legislative oversight functions curb waste, inefficiency, ineffectiveness, corruption, and the mismanagement of public resources. They improve the living standard of the people through the provision of social amenities and infrastructure. Let me conclude this presentation by insisting that personal safety and security, difference and respect for human dignity, improved employment opportunities and economic empowerment, improved infrastructure, and above all, strong institutions are imperative if legislations must achieve their desired results. There is also the critical need to give adequate attention to those areas that promote social, economic, and political integration of our people and communities. Deliberate effort must be made to construct a Nigerian state in which inclusiveness is valued. Always conscious that a Nigeria at peace with itself would necessarily be a tapestry woven from the various strands of the cultures, traditions, and aspirations of all our people. Thank you for listening.
Our special guest of honor, very senior officers here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you all agree with me that our guest lecturer was actually very crack and unforgiving in his lecture. This is a round of applause for him. You are all welcome to the second segment of this program.
So the first recipient of this award is Major General A. Oyebade, retired. Major General Oyebade was General Officer commanding 1 Division of Nigerian Army and was also the Commandant in Nigerian Defense Academy until his retirement. He is currently a businessman and engages in community service. Next is Brigadier General O.A. Onor, retired. Brigadier General O.A. Onor was a director, Nigerian Army Museum, prior to his retirement. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Fine Art. He authored a book titled Don't Forget, and several others not mentioned. He is currently the Oba Emo1 of Rode Kingdom